All right, welcome to pro football. First 50 years where we take the past and we bring it back to life. I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. And especially if you're going to go back in time and check out a game from like the 1920s or the 30s. Sure, you can go online, find the box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was that someone kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might find starting lineups for each team. But exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we can take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos or nothing like that here. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game, exhibition game. The Cleveland Browns at the San Francisco 49ers at Kezar Stadium. Exhibition game, August 30th, 1959. Yeah. Now, for both these teams, neither team had a particularly good preseason. This would be a close game. And both these teams have almost, very, very similar regular seasons, if I might add. Both, disappointing second halves. Now, I'll show you. Let's pull the Cleveland Browns up here. All right, let's see here. All right. Okay, we got 1959 Cleveland Browns. Now, we zoom in here. All right. Oh, wait, 2-4, right? The Cleveland Browns. The first 6 games are all just preseason. They beat the Bears. They lost to the Lions. They beat the Rams. And they lost their first 3, the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is wrong here. Pro Football Archives. This game was played on August 11th. Tuesday, August 11th. It wasn't played on Wednesday, August 12th. And this is wrong. Someone's hitting a crack pipe over there. I'm not sure. I don't even know how to get hold of them. Pro Football Archives to even let them know. I don't even know if they even care that any of this is wrong. But what they have here, right, is Sunday. The game was played on Sunday, August 30th. That's correct. They played the 49ers, but they did not play at Cleveland Stadium. This game was played at Kezar Stadium in San Francisco, California. So this is wrong. So I don't know. Once again, I looked up and down here to try to get a hold of it. Once again, I don't even know if they even care. But in the first 3 games here, they got 2 mistakes. So anyway, it is what it is. But we'll look here. Once they got the season started, they had a loss, right? Then right here, there was 6-2 with 4 games left to go. So were the Giants at 6-2. So it was anybody's race, right? And of course, they always try to have that little nugget for you at the end of the season, right? When they have the Giants and the Browns playing each other, quite possibly maybe for the division title or so, whatever. But it was not meant to be, as the Browns. They lost 2 heartbreakers right here. I know one of these games, I didn't do a video on it yet. One of these games, Lou Groza missed an extra point, which would have tied the game. But it is what it is. But they lost a 1-point game to the Steelers. They lost a 1-point game to the 49ers. Then they got the doors blown off them at Yankee Stadium against the Giants, 48-7. Possibly, I did not look to see. But possibly the worst loss maybe in Paul Brown's Cleveland Brown coaching history. Maybe they lost by 41 points. Whew. And then they beat the Eagles the final game of the season. But, they were right there. They were right there. And then they lost 3 straight games. I said, these are 2 tough ones. Now, it's nothing, to be ashamed about, because the Steelers were the second half of the season. The Steelers were a very good team. I think they were 4-1 in their last 6 games. They were 4-1-1. Bobby Lane had them rolling, and the Steelers were 6-5-1. So the Steelers actually had a winning record. And they lost to the 49ers here. And nothing totally to be ashamed about there because 49ers, they were 7-5. Then of course, they lost to the Giants. Of course, the Giants were 10-2, so they lost to 3 good teams in a row there. Just this one's a little embarrassing, getting blown out by 41 points. And of course, then they beat the Eagles. So they fell apart. They lost 3 out of the final 4 games, and they finished tied for second place with the Eagles, 7-5. Now the 49ers, they were actually 7 games into the season. They had the best record in the NFL. They were 6-1, as we'll see right here. Now, same thing here. They were, I think it's 2-4, right? Yeah, 2-4. They won. Then they won this game. Spoiler alert: they beat the Browns here once again. This game was played at Kezar Stadium, as we will see. Not Cleveland, Ohio. It was not played in Cleveland Stadium, but they were. Then they lost their final 3 preseason games. Once again, it goes both ways, right? It's only preseason. It's not the end of the world. But if you're playing the game, you like to win it. So, but once again. But you'll notice here, right? They beat the Eagles, then they beat the Rams. They lost a tough 1-point game to the Packers. Then they won their next 4. So they were actually 6-1 at one point. They were actually 2 games ahead. The Baltimore Colts were 4-3. So they were actually 2 games ahead of the Colts with only 5 games left to go in the season. Thing was that the Colts ran off the final 5 games, and the 49ers would lose 4 out of the final 5 games, as you see right here. They were 6-1, 2-game lead with 5 games to go. And not only did they not win, but they had a 2-game lead. Not only did they didn't win, but they wound up 2 games back in second place. Well, actually, I'm sorry, third place, because the Colts wound up 9-3. The Bears were 8-4. The 49ers and the Packers both finished with 7-5 records. So really, to be fair, the Colts were the better team, but a little tough to swallow when you're 6-1 and you lose 4 of your final 5 games and you wind up not even second, you wind up in third place. So, but both teams did the same thing, right? The 49ers lost 4 out of the final 5, and the Browns lost 3 out of the final 4. But all in all, they both had winning records. But like with the more so with the Browns, they're perennial. They're always, almost every year, they're right there, either going to the championship game or battling, to go to the championship game. Now with the 49ers, it was. It was kind of slim pickings. They had the 1957. They had a playoff game against the Detroit Lions. They both wound up with identical records at the end of the season. They had a playoff game at Kezar Stadium. The 49ers were actually up 27-7, and they wound up losing 31-27. They were halfway through the third quarter. The 49ers were up at home by 20 points, and they wound up losing. Oh, boy. And that was pretty much it for the 49ers until 1970, when they finally made the playoffs again. They got to the championship game. They played at the final game ever at Kezar Stadium was the 1970 NFC Championship game, where they would lose 17-10 to the Dallas Cowboys. But all right, well, let's go. We're talking about Kezar Stadium. Let's what does Wikipedia got to say on Kezar? Just an odd-shaped stadium. Obviously, a lot of these stadiums being odd-shaped and all the configurations and all, obviously, it's due to the city streets around it and the surrounding area. All right, Kezar Stadium. There we go. All right. Zooming on in. Here we go. Kezar Stadium is an outdoor athletic stadium in San Francisco, California, located adjacent to Kezar Pavilion in the southeastern corner of Golden Gate Park. It serves as the home of the San Francisco City FC SL League 2. Okay. Obviously, it's the original home of the San Francisco 49ers and the Oakland Raiders. It was in their first season only. Kezar also hosts amateur and recreation sport leagues, as well as numerous San Francisco high school football games. 1920, Jack Spaulding proposed an athletics stadium for San Francisco, seating 50,000 people. Many business leaders in the city backed him, as it would keep San Francisco level with other cities with large stadiums. Areas under consideration were Harrison Streets, Ocean Shore, Central Park grounds. 1922, San Francisco Park Commission accepted 100. Now this is rather generous, especially if you consider it was back in 1922. The San Francisco Park Commission accepted a $100,000 gift from the estate of Mary Kezar to build a memorial in honor of her mother and uncles. In honor of her mother, who were pioneers in the area. So they were pioneers in the area. And she gave $100,000 as a gift. I guess that, $100,000 back in 1922, just for her mothers and uncles. Wow. Very generous. After the city and county of San Francisco appropriated an additional $200,000, ground was broken on the stadium on June 27, 1924, and the stadium was built in a year. Dedication ceremonies were on May 2nd, 1925. Stadium had many uses in the 30s. In addition to track and field competitions, Kezar Stadium hosted motorcycle racing, auto racing, rugby, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, boxing, cricket, and even football. Imagine that. 1932, the Australian cricket team played a North California all-star team. High school football, college football. Professional football. Let me zoom in over here. Now, the stadium, the original stadium's been knocked down, but it still lives today. So they got pictures of it. Here's the original Kezar Stadium, right? Here's the Kezar Stadium from kind of far away. Oh, actually, from Mount Olympus, 1955. Beautiful shot. Look at that beautiful shot. Wow. 70 years ago. Look at that picture. Wow, amazing. The Kezar Stadium is the first home of the San Francisco 49ers and the Oakland Raiders, as well as many NFL Hall of Famers, historical games, and the first alley-oop. The Raiders played at Kezar for their first 4 home games in 1960 and at Candlestick Park during the remainder of their first 2 seasons. Let's see, before Frank Yule Field was built as a temporary facility in Oakland, defensive end Jim Marshall, the visiting Vikings, had his famous wrong way run at Kezar Stadium in 1964 against the 49ers on October 25th. Vikings came back to win that game, though. Let's see. Kezar had a poor reputation among NFL players. In his 1987 memoir, Hall of Fame defensive end tackle Art Donovan recalls the look of dread worn by visiting teams arriving at the stadium, owing it to its inadequate dressing rooms, long, dusty tunnel to the field, shredded turf that was a byproduct of rain and overuse, and goddamn seagulls that would arrive in the fourth quarter and start blanking on you like they were aiming at you. Fans were also notoriously rowdy at the stadium and often got into brawls. After the 1970 NFC Championship game, the final game at Kezar Stadium, 22 people were arrested for fighting each other in the stands or throwing cans and bottles of alcohol into the air. 49ers lost that game 17-10. They moved into more modern and accessible Candlestick Park for the 1971 season and played there through 2013. Kezar was also the home field for the San Francisco Stingrays women professional football team, 2003 to 2005. There was all kinds of things there, right? The movie Dirty Harry, concerts. I mean, my goodness. I mean, San Francisco, wow. The Doobie Brothers, Jefferson Starship, Tower of Power, Joan Baez, Grateful Dead, Santana, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Graham Central Station, Led Zeppelin, my favorite band of all time. And with pending demolition, the bleacher planks of Kezar stadiums were sold off to fans at a party in April 1989. In June, the stadium was demolished and rebuilt with a much smaller seating capacity of 10,000. They did a really looks nice. Really did a fantastic job. Here's a shot of it in 2011. And they have the replica arch right there that they built. Their pictures show you. It really looks good. Let's see. Seating for 10,000. The upgrades included an 8-lane all-weather track and grass athletic infield suitable for soccer, football, and lacrosse. So, all kinds of things was played there over the years. But show you, I mean, it just had an odd shape. Not so much a shape, but the way the seats were. I mean, a lot of the older stadiums were just, you look at them, you're like, right, there we go. Football, Kezar Stadium. Now, how cool is this shot right here? Look at this one, right? I mean, the Packers are getting ready to go into the end zone here. Now, I'm going to say there's a G on that on a helmet there. So this was in the early 60s. This had to be from 61 on. But here's good old Kezar Stadium. Now, it's like, the fans are cheering and stuff like that. And Bart Starr's going up to the line of scrimmage telling them right? And the refs are doing the same thing. They don't do that nowadays. I mean, if the home field crowd is going crazy, good luck. You better have the silent count or something, brother, right? They're not, oh, yeah, calm down, guys, calm down. We need to snap the ball. No, tough. But it was a great shot from the end zone. I mean, holy cow. Wow. Then there's another one here. Oh, here we go. Look at this one, too. Same game, same two teams, right? From the other end zone. It looks like literally the Packers look like, the goal line is like right here. So the ball's got to be like the 1 or the 2 yard line. They're starting to drive. And you see that place is just packed with people. I mean, look at that sea of people there. Wow. Unbelievable. Now here's the new stadium from high above. Right, here's the arch over here. Right, so you got the 8-lane track going around the stadium. Grass. Gotta have grass. Artificial turf. Get the out of here. But I mean, so basically it's like pretty much the stands are about the same on both sides. Right? It has lights, right? And so man, I guess maybe about 5,000 over here, and I guess about 5,000 over here. Right? So just absolutely look at it. That's fantastic. And that's why I like it. If whatever 95% of those old stadiums, whatever, they can't keep them. It's not feasible or whatever the reason, they got to get knocked down. They said it's still a park now. It's still a field, right? So it's still usable. So it's fantastic. Instead of knocking it down and it's a parking garage and a Dunkin' Donuts and a pizza place or something, absolutely hate that. Let's see here. Here, you gotta go back, right? You got to go old John Brody here, right? How cool is that? But you'll notice over here there's a wall, right? They built a wall. Like the stands are not, here we go. Here's a good shot of it, all the way around. You see right here? You see that's the wall I'm talking about right here. So they were throwing the ball over here, and the wall is built. Right? You can see it's like there's a large portion of people are back here. And then like over here, it goes down. And it's because of the streets and everything behind it. That is, I guess this is the new Kezar Stadium, I guess. They're playing a game in there. There's the old, here we go. Right. So once again, you can see there's a huge amount of people there. But like over here, this is where the stands get Colorful history of Kezar Stadium, 49ers former home. Look at you guys running around in the mud. Look at that. Now, that's football. You're not allowed to have that. You're not allowed to have mud anymore. Yeah, say over here, got the wall. It seems like there's like more people down at this end, right? And then from over here, it just gets smaller. Another shot over there, right? Because you see, right? It's going around, but then there's a street here, so it couldn't. Obviously, the ball couldn't keep bending out, right, to go around because of the street. So they had to cut it off right here, right? But it's also, you kind of see. I mean, it just, I guess the way the lay of the land. I guess if the street is this way, that the stadium's kind of cocked a little bit going toward that way. But unfortunately, they're at the mercy of right. I mean, look how weird that is. See how high it is over here? And all the way around over here. Right? And then over here, it's like half the size. And then over here, you got the wall. So there's like, not many people, over here. And I heard something like that. It's like, see, like the goal line is here. Right? See, you got the uprights here. So that right from like here on back, there's, I read an article. There's like, it's like, I forgot, like 60% of the people in the stands are actually like on the goal line or behind the goal line. There's not as many people because like you got right from here, there's the other goal line, right? So you got a small amount of people right here. So from there's a decent amount of people here from the goal lines, but there's a huge amount of people are actually like behind the goal lines. I read just an interesting article. Here's another shot right here, right? So you can see the street right here. Right? And there's, maybe there's a parking lot here. I'm not exactly sure, but right. So you got the street here, but you'll see it's kind of laid on like kind of like on an angle. But there's I don't know. Maybe there's the streets over here. So this is why they were able to actually build, as high as they could all the way around. But then over here, they couldn't keep going out because there was the street there, and they got these buildings across the street there. So they had to taper off the stands and all. But it's very, very interesting. Now, of course, it's all. Here's another shot. Look at these uniforms, huh? So you got the 49ers and the Browns. There you go. Right. Absolutely fantastic. Now this, Now this would not be. This is certainly not this game. Question is not this game. This is mid 50s or whatever. I was going to say maybe this is but this is not because you can see. So look, see the grass right here. See how it's actually green. It's not all chewed up. So actually, this could be an exhibition game, maybe from 1955 or 54. I'm not exactly sure what the uniforms are specifically right here, but I do know, like with the Browns, as we'll see, 1959 have numbers on the side of their helmets. One of the few years where they actually had numbers on the side of their helmets, as we'll see in some pictures here. But this is not the. See, the Browns have no numbers on the side of the helmets, and you got like a middle linebacker here with one face guard here, barely a small face guard. I mean, my goodness. But that was the 49ers that like whatever reddish orange helmets and a stripe going down. That was the 49ers uniform. I guess pretty much mid 50s, and we got Y.A. Tittle here taking a snap. But this is how they blocked, right? When they were dropping back to block, everybody was down low, so the quarterback could, Y.A. Tittle's not a huge guy. They don't There weren't many 6'5" quarterbacks like there are today. Right? Ben Roethlisberger, where he's 13 foot tall. Look across every, you know what I mean? Not everybody. I mean, obviously Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, some of them, but a lot of the quarterbacks back then were not that tall. So there's a lot of them like in the backfield, right? They're all ducking down, right? Getting ready to block, but they're all staying low. Right? So the quarterback can get the ball up downfield. But man, what a great shot, huh? Look at this. I mean, the people in the background there. Wow. Whew. All right. So cool stadium. All right, so let's see a little bit of pregame action here. So we're going to go to the an Ohio paper, right? The Plain Dealer, August 30th, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. What do they got to say? There we go. All right. Browns to test Nanowski once again. Now, one of the things was in the beginning of the season, Coach Paul Brown, he was giving Nanowski a shot at the quarterback position to see if he could, win it. Now, it's kind of weird because, the Browns, Mo Plum was a decent quarterback, but the 49ers had John Brody and Wyatt Tittle. So a couple of the teams, you look at it, it's like, oh my goodness, the Eagles had Sonny Jurgensen and Norm Van Brocklin. Right, they had John Brody and Wyatt Tittle. What was it? The Steelers had Len Dawson and Bobby Lane. It's like, so some teams had the quarterbacks and other teams didn't. But let's see. Still seeking their first victory of the exhibition football season, the Cleveland Browns faced the San Francisco 49ers Sunday at Kezar Stadium. For both Paul Brown and Red Hickey, new coach of the 49ers, the meeting has some extra importance. The teams tangle again during the regular season in Cleveland, and they will be probing for weaknesses that can be exploited then. Let me refresh the page here. They're performing security verification. Once again, as in the losses to Pittsburgh and Detroit, Brown will open with Jim Nanowski, quarterback. And he kind of lose the job. I believe it kind of like in this game. He didn't do such a good job. He still has hopes the pro sophomore from Michigan State will be able to take over the passing job. Not necessarily. Bob Kane will be back at defensive end for this game, and Preston Carpenter returned to the slot end after having operated at halfback in the first exhibitions. Ray Renfro and Billy Houghton probably will open at the flankers, but Brown said that he plans to use Gene Cook, rookie from Cleveland West High School and Toledo University, and Frank Clark there about half the time. The new defensive line will have Sid Youngelman and Willie McClung at the tackles, with Dane and Dick Shafrath, newcomer from Ohio State, as the outside men. San Francisco, which has defeated Washington and lost to Green Bay, is pretty much a veteran cast. Wyatt Tittle is the quarterback and still one of the best. Joe Perry, back for his 12th season, will be at fullback. Don't pull that out. With hustling Hugh McElhaney and Jim Pace at the halfbacks. Abe Woodson, former Illinois ace, is now a regular defensive back. Hickey plans to look at Eddie Dove as a defensive back, while Dan James, big ex-Ohio State center, will start. The Browns have dropped 5 straight exhibitions to the 49ers, having last one in 1953. And going back to that, so pretty much they play an exhibition game against each other pretty much every year. And is that one picture I showed you where the grass really looked good? That's quite possibly, was an exhibition game between the Browns and the 49ers. Perfect football weather with the temperature in the low 60s is expected. Very nice, very nice. The Browns found the cool air a welcome relief from Cleveland's heat and humidity as they worked out for a half hour this afternoon at Kezar. All right, let's see here. Next, we go to, what do we got? The San Francisco Chronicle, the August 30th, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Chronicle. What do they got to say on the game here? San Francisco treat. All right, San Francisco Chronicle. All right, looks like looks like we have maybe 2 pages here. All right. Yeah, okay, 2 pages from the San Francisco Chronicle. Oh, wait. Let me do this. Okay. The 49ers, who are building for the future but hoping for respectability today, meet the Browns at Kezar in the San Franciscans' last local appearance of the NFL exhibition season. Some 28,000 fans, lured by Cleveland's longtime greatness and the prospect of a brilliant 49er finish in the last 60 seconds, should be on hand for today's kickoff at 1:30 p.m. 49ers have a 1-1 exhibition record, and Cleveland has lost to Pittsburgh and Detroit. Win or lose, Coach Red Hickey's 49ers have been knocking at the finish. Quarterback White Tittle passed to Clyde Connor for 16 yards in the last 9 seconds to climax an 80-yard drive in 59 seconds. Wow. And whipped the Washington Redskins 27-24. Then Tittle's 40-yard alley-ooper to R.C. Owens was inches short in the last second as Green Bay beat San Francisco 24-17 last week. Yeah, he got inches, or it was like around the 1-yard line. Yeah. After this game, the San Franciscos meet the Chicago Cardinals September 5th at Seattle, the Rams at Los Angeles September 12th, and then the Giants at Salt Lake City, Utah. The 49ers' next San Francisco game will be against the Philadelphia Eagles September 27th in the league opener. Because of fullback Jim Brown and a great running attack combined with a strong defense, the Browns are the consensus title pick to win the Eastern Division title. If either Jim Nanowski, who will start today, or Milt Plum, last year's regular, provide the solid quarterbacking Brown has been seeking for 4 years, Cleveland should be a near title cinch. That and what they're referring to is after Otto Graham retired after the 55 seasons, the 56, 57, 58, 59. This is the 4th season since Otto Graham retired. So couldn't replace Otto Graham, and they were looking for a quarterback for quite some time. Jim Unbelievable Brown, a fast 228-pounder, set a league record of 1,527 yards last year. Whew. He has fast friends. All right, move forward here. Let's try this here, see if this will work. He has fast friends. In Ray Renfro, Bobby Mitchell. Don't get that dude in the open. Holy cow. And Leroy Bolden. Preston Carpenter, the starting left halfback, is a strong ball mover. The acquisition of Billy Houghton from Green Bay juices up the receiving group considerably. Although the Browns have not won a world title since quarterback Otto Graham retired after the 55 season, they took the division crown in 1957 and have been contenders nearly every year. They tied with the Giants for the East title last season and lost in the playoff. Paul Brown's team features hard nose-to-nose football on both offense and defense. The Browns, long noted for strong offensive lines, will be handicapped by the loss of tackle Mike McCormick. McCormick, who underwent a knee operation, should be ready for the league season. Harold Sarabry, I'm going to say, Cleveland public relations man, said, "At the moment, we're pretty thin on offensive tackles." Sauerbrei or Bree or whatever said that Paul Wiggin, former Stanford player, had been out with a bruised shoulder but would play at defensive end against the 49ers. Sid Youngelman, once a 49er, is starting at defensive tackle for us. Floyd Peters, formerly of San Francisco State, has built his way to 258 by weightlifting and is playing quite a bit of defense for us. Farrell Funston, College of Pacific, has looked pretty good, but he faces a lot of competition at offensive end. As part of the building program, Hickey will start 5 rookies today. They include safeties Dave Baker, Eddie Dove, middle linebacker Bob Harrison on the defensive team. Offensively, Monty Clark goes at right tackle and Dan James opens at center. Defensive end Ed Henke, with a knee ailment, is the only 49er definitely out of this one. Defensive wing Abe Woodson and linebacker Jerry Tubbs are available, although still suffering from leg injuries, and defensive back Bill Atkins and offensive tackle John Thomas are ready for full speed work. Atkins suffered a dislocated elbow on the first play of the first practice scrimmage. Wow. And Thomas underwent a hernia operation in early August. The rebuilding 49ers have been brilliant in spots, especially in the final seconds, but have been herky-jerky some of the time. And here we go. All right. Here's your offense and your defense. San Francisco versus Cleveland at Kezar Stadium. Kickoff is at 1:30. There's your offensive teams right there. And there's your defensive teams. And there's the rest of the squads. Now, once they get started, there's only 36 guys on the team. Slim pickings. So, unlike they dress 46, I think it is nowadays. They get a 53-man roster, but they only dress 46. Well, here they only had 36. So each man was even that much more important. All right, so now let's go to the San Francisco Examiner. The August 30th, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Examiner. What do they got to say? All right, here we go. 49ers to butt heads against the Browns today. Let me refresh just to make sure we don't screw this up. All right, the 49ers testing program runs up against a time-honored wall of resistance today in the Kezar Stadium. Cleveland Browns, perennial powers every freaking year of the National Football League. I mean, they started an All-American Football Conference. They won all 4 championships from 46 to 49. And once they got into the league, 50 to 55, the first 6 years they were in the league, they went to the championship game. So, I mean, every year they're right there. They're either in the championship or they're fighting for it. I mean, unbelievable. It really is. But play the Hickeymen in the third of the exhibitions at 1:30 p.m. with a crowd of some 25,000 expected for the 49ers' final homestand until they open league play on September 27th. Now, the crowds back in those days for exhibition games were certainly usually a little bit smaller. I mean, you might get 20,000. Some places, hey, they got a lot more. Don't get me wrong, but nowadays, for especially the exhibition, especially there's only so few of them. You know, sometimes the places get sold out or darn near sold out. So you have 50, 60, whatever 1,000 stands today. Whereas back then you might have 20 or 30,000. After this one, San Francisco goes on the road to meet the Cardinals, the Rams, and then the Giants before. Well, although not so much not on the road. I mean, they weren't on the road playing in New York. There were a lot of the teams played neutral site games, and a lot of the games were neutral site, and they were also for charity too. So 2 thumbs up for that. Then they played the Giants before returning to open the regular season with Buck Shaw's Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles would lose that first game of the season to the 49ers, but the Eagles had a fantastic season. They won 2 games in 58, and then they won 7 games in 1959, plus 5. Fantastic season. Coach Ball Brown brings in the usual star-studded cast. Yep, by Jimmy Brown, 27-pound league rushing champion, 2 years hand running. 2 years hand running. All right. Now in his third season, and he'd win the title again this year too, 1959. Now in his third season, the punishing fullback from Syracuse University already has written record galore while grinding out 2,469 yards, a phenomenal effort considering that the 49ers' Joe Perry, football's all-time ground gainer, has taken 9 NFL seasons to build his total to 6,549. The proud Browns, who have won 6 Eastern Division titles outright and tied for another since shifting from the All-American Football Conference. With the 49ers, both those teams came from the All-American Football Conference, come to town with an 0-2 record on the season's exhibition campaign. The 49ers will be looking for their second victory after beating Washington 27-24 in the last 9 seconds and losing that 1-yard decision to Green Bay 24-17. Both coaches, the 50-year-old Brown, who has an amazing lifetime record of 267 wins, 55 losses, and 11 ties. Oh, yeah, I mean, he was a phenomenal coach. He was like Vince Lombardi. Wherever Vince Lombardi went, Vince Lombardi just won. Right? And whatever Paul Brown did, but Vince Lombardi did in basketball. I mean, he knew nothing about basketball, and he was but some coaches, you have a lifetime of 267 wins, 50, and including all of his football career, right? 55 losses. So basically, he won out of every 6 games, he'd win 5 and he would lose 1. I mean, phenomenal. Then we get Red Hickey, I guess, is 137, 34, and 5. Paul Brown was 137, 34, and 5 with the Browns. And Red Hickey have announced liberal use will be made of their prize rookies. Cleveland will show off as starters its first 3 draft choices, and Rich Kreitling from Illinois on offense, and tackle Fran O'Brien from Michigan State, and Dick Schaffrath from Ohio State on defense. Hickey will lean even more heavily on first-year men, tackle Monty Clark, and either Dan James from Ohio State or Bill Koritz from Dayton at center open on offense, while 3 freshmen defensive backs, Eddie Dove of Colorado, Dave Baker from Oklahoma, and linebacker Bob Harrison of Oklahoma get opening assignments with the Stop Brigade. The opening quarterbacks will be Wyatt Tittle and Jim Nanowski. The latter, a 6'1", 210-pound second-year man from Michigan State. Tittle, in 2 games, has displayed brilliant form. He has completed 26 of 38 passes. I mean, my goodness, that's like 3 out of every 4 passes he's completed. And he attempts for 354 yards. Brown has moved 260-pound Bob Gain, a longtime 49er tormentor, as a tackle out the defensive end where he can better angle on Wyatt Tittle, and with the hard-hitting Schaffrath charging in from the other flank. Another pair of 260-pounders, Sid Youngelman, who started his pro career with the 49ers 5 years ago, and Willie McClung will be stationed just inside Gain and Schaffrath to contribute to the pressure cooker. Hickey is primarily concerned with finding out if last week's defensive collapse against Green Bay represented an off day or whether it was an indication that the fences need reconstruction. All right, then we have one more here. We have the August 30th, 1959 edition of the Times-Herald. What do they got to say here? The Times-Herald. All right. Let me refresh this just in case. I don't want to screw things up here. All right. Here we go. Coach Red Hickey continues his experiments with the rookies as the San Francisco 49ers play the winless Cleveland Browns this afternoon at Kezar Stadium. Kickoff time for this exhibition game is 1:30 p.m. 5 newcomers were named to the starting roles, with Dan James of Ohio State at center and Monty Clark from Southern Cal at tackle on the offensive unit. Defenders include middle linebacker Bob Harrison from Oklahoma, Dave Baker of Oklahoma, and Eddie Dove from Colorado at halfback post. Should an ankle injury suffered by James earlier in the week hamper his play, another rookie, Bill Koritz from Dayton, will get the call. It's the final home game. After beating Washington and Green Bay, the 49ers wind up their home preseason schedule with this Cleveland tussle. Then they go away for 3 and come back to open the regular season football league on September 27th. That's the game against the Eagles. Coach Paul Brown of Cleveland also was doing some switching as he moved both Preston Carpenter and Bob Gain to end post. Carpenter had been slated for a halfback role. Gain moved from left tackle to left end on the defensive unit. Jim Nanowski, a second-year man from Michigan State, gets the quarterback call with big fullback Jim Brown, the number 1 running threat. Hickey sticks with this 49er offensive backfield. Y.A. Tittle engineering the attack with Jim Pace at halfback, Joe Perry at fullback, and Hugh McElhaney at flanker. You got 3 Hall of Famers right there. Then you had John Henry Johnson to add him too. So you had 4 Hall of Famers at one time in their backfield. I mean, just unbelievable. Cleveland's Jim Brown set a league rushing record of 1,527 yards and 257 tries last season and tied the touchdown record with 18, even as his club bowed in exhibition 34-20 to Pittsburgh and 9-3 to the Lions. Brown showed flashes of his power and speed. And there's your starting offense and your starting defense, right? For both the teams. All right, so what happened during the game? Well, let's start off here. What do we got? We got the Plain Dealer, the Ohio paper, August 31st, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. Let's see what they got to say here. Going down. Here we go. All right, we got 2 pages here from the Plain Dealer. Let me refresh this here just so it doesn't screw up. Cleveland, Plain Dealer. Browns lose 3rd in a row, 17-14. And the Chi Sox near their first pennant in 40 years. Here we go. Jim Brown goes 70 yards and scores 2 touchdowns. Bill Plum moved ahead of Jim Nanowski in the quarterback battle yesterday as the Cleveland Browns fell before the 49ers 17-14 before 24,737 on a cool, bright day at Kezar Stadium. Except for a 70-yard touchdown burst by Jim Brown in the first quarter, the Browns failed to move the football with any consistency at the first. Jim Nanowski, the strong-arm rookie from Michigan State, well, they said his second year. Jim Nanowski's he was there last year too, so I don't know, but was at the helm for those 2 periods. Plum, the regular passer last season, took over after the intermission. He piloted the club 73 yards and 9 plays for a last quarter touchdown, and early in the period had led the drive to the 49-14. Brown goes 2 for second score. Brown, who again seems destined to carry much of the offensive load, blasted over his own left tackle for 2 yards and the second score. The 49ers, who now have won 2 of 3 exhibitions, scored their touchdowns in the first quarter. But you'll see right here, what do we got here? Well, it's the same race. Total first downs as the Browns with 0. So the Browns had 12 first downs, and the 49ers had 17. Very balanced attack here for the 49ers. 160 yards rushing, 180 passing. Can't get much more balanced than that. Rushing yards, 189, 79. And it's 268 total yards, but 70 of it was one play from Jim Brown. So you take that one play, and the Browns didn't even have 200 yards of offense the rest of the game. 7 out of 19 passing. Y.A. Tittle was a little over 50%. And apparently had 1 pass picked off. All right, so the 49ers scored their touchdowns in the first quarter. Hugh McElhaney grabbed the pass from Y.A. Tittle for a 48-yard scoring maneuver the first time Frisco had the ball. A toss of 7 yards from Tittle to Billy Wilson in the end zone came 7 minutes after Brown's long dash had evened the score. So it was 17-14. So apparently, like 21 of the 31 points got scored in the first quarter. Lou Groza added the points after the Cleveland touchdowns, while Tommy Davis, rookie from Louisiana State, or LSU, kicked the 2 points for the 49ers. The youngster also added the 23-yard field goal for the winning points in the last quarter. Cleveland's defensive play was another encouraging note for Paul Brown in this third straight loss. The realignment, which saw Bob Gain at left end and Sid Youngelman playing the tackle, worked well after a shaky first period. The game was also a good test for the Browns' aerial defense, as Tittle, considered by Brown to be one of the best in the business, went all the way. He completed 19 of 34 passes. All right, so we got to continue on the next. Let's see here. The Plain Dealer, August 31st, 1959 of the Plain Dealer. We got to go to page 37. Let me refresh it and let me show you. Hey, Bob St. Clair, who was a Hall of Fame offensive lineman, is in here playing on the defensive line. Tackle Bob St. Clair of the 49ers grabs Jim Brown's face guard, but can't prevent the fullback from scoring from the 2-yard line. And so it's weird. See, you got 3 guys right here. Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer. You don't usually see that nowadays. That's a great picture, though. Whoops. What do we have here? There we go. All right, so it ended. Hold on, let's say here. White Tittle completed 19 of 34 passes for 180 yards and the 2 touchdowns. However, all of those completions came in the first half. Wow. He completed every pass in the first half. He didn't complete a pass in the second half. Wow. Plum found the mark on 5 of 11 tosses for 86 yards. His longest was good for 34 yards to Billy Houghton in the touchdown drive that didn't quite come off. Milt did find Preston Carpenter over the middle for 27 yards in the setup play for the second Cleveland touchdown. Nanowski completed only 2 of 8 tries for 21 yards. And there you go. Right? Here's the running for both teams. And the Browns didn't cross midfield that first half except for Big Jim's touchdown jaunt. That run was a thing of beauty. He hit over the right side through a good hole, and that elbow room was all Jim needed. 3 members of the Frisco secondary had a good shot at the fullback, but he was off to the races with a wiggle of his hips and a touch of that jet takeoff. Jim topped both teams in rushing with 116 yards on 14 carries. The other Cleveland backs didn't do much altogether. Leroy Bolden picked up 29 yards on 5 carries. J.D. Smith, fullback from North Carolina, was head man on the ground for the 49ers with 61 yards, and veteran Joe Perry was next with 56. Is that it? Cleveland outrushed Frisco 189 to 159, but trailed in total yards 339 to 268. Yeah, but 70 of those yards were on one play. So if you take the one play away, yeah, the Browns had 119 yards rushing to 159, but it is what it is. The Browns, who lost to Pittsburgh and Detroit earlier this month, meet the Los Angeles Rams Saturday night in the Coliseum. And once again, there's the so I mean, look right here, right? 21 points scored in the first, and nothing in the second, nothing in the third. Then each team scored in the one time in the fourth quarter. All right. Now, next what do we got here? So we got the Cleveland Press, August 31st, 1959 edition of the Cleveland Press. What do they got to say? Dun, 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 dun. All right, here we go. Plum wins back job. And here we go. There's a picture right here. Gridiron Ballet is performed by San Francisco fullback Joe Perry in the first quarter of the 49ers' 17-14 exhibition victory over the Browns at Kezar Stadium yesterday. Perry picked up 7 yards after taking a pass from quarterback Wyatt Tittle. Chuck Noll of the Browns moves in for the tackle. So once again, got 2 people in this picture, and both of them are in the Hall of Fame. You don't see that much nowadays. Now, he's not in the Hall of Fame for being a player. He's, of course, in the Hall of Fame for being a coach. But a lot of Hall of Famers in this game. Bill Plum is the Browns' #1 quarterback again today as the team paused at the midway point in the preseason shakedown run. It will take a sharp reversal of form and a minor role from here on for sophomore Jim Nanowski to regain the top spot he was handed on an experimental basis at the start of training 7 weeks ago. Performance is the only thing we have to go on, said Paul Brown after yesterday's 17-14 loss to the 49ers before 24,737 fans at Kezar Stadium. Plum definitely moved the team much better. Brown isn't ready to make a flat statement about the quarterback job, but he did admit that Plum will play progressively more in the coming games. Since the former Penn State star played the entire second half against the 49ers and came close to salvaging the game, it's obvious that Nanowski will take a back seat starting with the encounter with Los Angeles Rams here Saturday night. That was the best we've looked so far, said Brown, referring to yesterday's third and fourth quarters. Plum engineered Cleveland's first sustained scoring drive in the 12 quarters played this summer. The march covered 73 yards in 9 plays and finished with Jim Brown bowling over left tackle for his second touchdown with 73 seconds left to play. Plum also moved the Browns 67 yards at the start of the fourth quarter, but had the ball jarred out of his hands from behind to end the threat on the San Francisco 10. So they had the ball down there, but I guess he got sacked and lost the ball. So they obviously lost at least a field goal there. 2 explosive touchdowns, one on a 48-yard pass play from Wyatt Tittle to Hugh McElhaney on the 49ers' first play of the game, and the other on a 70-yard trap play 22 seconds later from Jim Brown carrying the mail. Got the clubs off to a freewheeling start. Now, once again, Wyatt Tittle, Hall of Famer, to Hugh McElhaney, Hall of Famer, and then 22 seconds later, Jim Brown, Hall of Famer, carried the mail for a touchdown. Right? A lot of Hall of Famers. 49ers followed right through with an 81-yard drive in which they kept control of the ball more than 8 full minutes. Tittle, the 49ers' slick passer with 11 years of pro experience, tossed 4 yards to Bill Wilson in the end zone for the touchdown. The Browns' defense tightened after that and got tougher as the game progressed. And once again, there's the stats right there. Game progressed with Nanowski at the throttle. However, Cleveland made only 2 first downs and never got past its own 35 the remainder of the half. Wow. At the intermission, the Browns had minus 3 yards passing. Wow. And the rushing total was 32 yards aside from Brown's gallop. Plum, despite bad luck on 2 long throws to Ray Renfro, completed 5 passes for 82 yards, and Cleveland gained 87 more rushing in the last half. McElhaney was the Browns' biggest thorn with 7 catches for 103 yards, although a 39-yard run by J.D. Smith and 3 passes by Tittle to 49er and R.C. Owens and Fred Dugan set the stage for the field goal that ultimately decided the game. Rookie Tom Davis from LSU kicked it from the 23 with 5 minutes and 22 seconds left to play in the game. Brownie Bits. What do we got here? The Browns, complimented by Paul Brown for having played a good game in San Francisco, were given today off for sightseeing and shopping. Wow, that's damn nice of them. Afternoon workouts resume tomorrow at Brookside Park next to the Rose Bowl. The ever-present wind in Kezar Stadium played a number of tricks, all bad on the Browns yesterday. Lou Groza aimed 2 long field goal attempts to the left because the goal line flags were flapping sharply to the right, but the ball went straight and was wide both times. On the other hand, the ball wagging so much on a 30-yard pass from Lil Plum that he hit Ray Renfro on the shoulder and bounced away early in the second half. Renfro's misfortune was doubled a few moments later when a 49er defender tipped a 28-yard pass out of his hands on the 10-yard line. Plum supported the general opinion that the Browns' pass protection was the best of the season. I was trying to do too many things at once, said Plum, in explaining how we fumbled the ball away in the fourth quarter. I started to run, and I was looking for a receiver at the same time when somebody came up from behind and hit my arm. If I'd concentrated on doing one or the other, I'd have been all right. The crowd of 27,737 was the 49ers' largest this season, but well below the average for a visit by the Browns. An interest in the Giants' pennant bid is hurting the early grid gates. Yeah, that's true. The San Francisco Giants, because they just moved out there from New York. Jim Schaffner got a demonstration of Wyatt Tittle's famous alley-oop pass to R.C. Owens. Schaffner went into the air and touched the towering 40-yard toss, but the 6'3" Owens stepped out of the end zone as he grabbed the ball, and the pass was ruled incomplete. Red Hickey, the 49ers coach, was pleased at his team's defensive showing. Our only big mistake was Bob Harrison playing out of position and Jim Brown's long run, said Hickey. Harrison, a rookie from Oklahoma, seems capable of solving the 49ers' troublesome middle linebacker position. All right, now what do we got here? We got the San Francisco Chronicle, August 31st, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Chronicle. What's it got to say? All right, here we go. Yeah, I'm going to need to refresh this page. Okay, there we go. Hickey woke with TD. Breakfast table strategy. There you go. There's the same thing once again, right? There's that picture. Bob St. Clair. He's like 6'8". He's a tall dude. Grabbing Jim Brown's face mask. And Lou Groza there. All right. What do we got here? Nice picture here. Billy Wilson made this fine fingertip catch for the 49ers' second TD in the first quarter. Wyatt Tittle was on the throwing end of the 4-yard aerial. Second TD in the first quarter. Nice picture. Nice grab. That's the fingertip right there, baby, right? Concentration. Right? Eyes on the ball. This way it was, baby, right? You had somebody on the other side taking a picture. Man. This guy's sitting down here taking a picture. He's sitting down taking a picture. Right? This is the way it was. And then you got these guys over here laying down taking pictures. All right. What do we got here? Coach Red Hickey wiped the breakfast crumbs off his mouth yesterday morning and sought out quarterback Wyatt Tittle. Here's the first play of the game. It ought to go. It did, 48 yards for a touchdown as Wyatt Tittle bootleg to the left, then passed to Hugh McElhenney, cutting back over the middle. It set the pattern for a happy day as the San Franciscans beat Cleveland 17-14 in what Hickey called our best game of the exhibition season. He added, anytime you beat the Browns, especially when they're hungry after 2 losses, you've done something. The boys were really knocking. Our tough week of practice apparently made them realize they had to play the game on Sunday or work hard during the week. I was pleased with all the hands and very happy with Eddie Dove, who got the game ball. These veterans know they need help, and that's why they gave the ball to rookie Paul Lowe 2 weeks ago and to Dove today. Tittle got getting back to Hickey's call on the first touchdown, said, I guess he must have gone to sleep thinking about that play. Whoa, calm down there, Roscoe. Anyway, he couldn't wait to tell me about it. Tittle then explained the fourth quarter play when he was knocked groggy by Cleveland defender Walt Michaels and various others. That Costello, middle linebacker Vince Costello, was playing patsy with me, jumping into the line, then out. I decided to call an audible, meaning change the signals at the line of scrimmage. But in my hurry, I missed it by 2 numbers. The result was that Wyatt Tittle stripped himself of protection by the 2-number miss, and unblocked Hungry Browns played with him like a football. The balding insurance salesman didn't know whether he was Yelberton Abraham or John Brody. I made a call in the huddle, got to the line of scrimmage, and forgot what it was. He called timeout and ran to the sidelines to help clear his head, even though he got off a 16-yard pass to Fred Dugan to set the 49ers up for a scoring try on the 15. So he probably had a concussion, and he was just groggy with a head of concussion, probably, and he was still in there playing. After he passed the wild to R.C. Owens, Hickey, who said later, I could see he wasn't right, sent in Brody for the running play and Tommy Davis' 23-yard field goal, which actually won the game. Hickey, who didn't know about the audible, thought Tittle had pivoted wrong on the play. This is a tough game. If you do the wrong thing, you get whacked. The Browns' first TD, when Jim Brown went 70 yards, was the result of a mental error by Bob Harrison. It was a red dog play with Harrison, the cover-up man, responsible for Brown. It was to be expected this early, and Hogg played some real tough football after that. I didn't see him make any more mistakes. Later, Hickey approached linebacker Hogg, who was sitting with the drooped shoulders on the dressing room table with his partial plate out, exposing the gritter's badge of missing teeth, and said gently, I told the press it was your mental error which caused the Brown TD. Hogg grinned weakly, and the tough guy coach with the tender touch added, you played a good game. Don't let it get you down. Hickey said, I thought the linebacking was good. Carl Rubke was knocking hard. You can say I'm pleased with all the boys on offense and defense. That Dove is going to help us, and Dave Baker did a good job at the other safety. Rookie Luther Carr was really hitting on the offense. I don't think there were any serious injuries. A man doesn't get hurt when he's taking the battle to the other guy. The redhead said he was only playing percentage when he called for a 4th and 1 Tittle pass to R.C. Owens on a Cleveland 38 during the final field goal drive. And R.C. Owens said he didn't know where he was when he caught the alley-oop pass, which was ruled out of the end zone. I landed hard and juggled the ball for a moment when I came down. Owens was asking if the Browns were tough. They play real hard football, said the grinning RC as he whirled around the fashion model, the 5 or 6 large red gauze patches he was wearing. And Clyde Connor, who was kneed in the back by Junior Wren, will have a mighty sore back, said Hickey, but should be okay. Dr. Jim O'Connor said Billy Wilson has a bruised heel, and J.D. Smith caught 5, a fist in the eye. That's all the injuries we know about. Caught a fist. So we got some quick quotes here. Hugh McElhaney, I'm new at the flanker spot. I'll be happy if I can continue to improve and learn the job as the team grows. Leo Namalini, the only member of the rebuilt defensive line with experience at his position. For the first time, I felt we played as a unit. It's been kind of scramble, but today we were all cracking together. Defensive end Bob St. Clair. Leo's right, and we beat the Browns at their own game. Pound, pound, pound. Frank Morsey, or Moores. I had real confidence for the first time. I think it was my best. He played defensive tackle. Hickey said, after the Packer game, a lot of people thought we should shake up our defensive line, but Rome wasn't built in a day. You shouldn't be hasty. Offensive tackle John Gonzaga, I won't know until I see the pictures, but I think it was my worst. Nothing seemed to go right. offensive guard Bruce Bosley, or Bosley. I didn't feel sharp either, and then asked about ex-49er Sid Youngelman, who was thrashing around considerably on the field. He jumped on my back once, and I just turned him around and put his nose on the ground. No hard feelings. And there's, once again, there's the all the stats. Sometimes you don't always get a lot of stats, especially if it's an exhibition game. Especially if it's like a neutral game, played like a neutral site. But but usually, I mean, if obviously it's a regular season game, you get stats, but not always with the exhibition game. All right, so when you got the San Francisco Examiner, 2 pages on the San Francisco Examiner. All right, what do they got to say here? Finish it up with the San Francisco Examiner, August 31st, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Examiner. Let me refresh the page here so it doesn't screw up as I'm reading it. 49ers turn back the Browns, 17-14. Where we go. Here we go. Rookie's field goal brings 49ers a win. There we go, right there. 49ers, there we are. Henry Schmidt swings and misses the Browns at Farrell Funston, who escapes his wild blow. Despite a tendency to play Butterfingers with several gold-tinted opportunities, San Francisco 49ers closed out their home exhibition stand with a thoroughly acceptable 17-14 triumph over the Browns. The difference on the scoreboard was rookie Tommy Davis's 23-yard field goal with a little more than 5 minutes of play remaining, sufficient to cancel out a last-gasp Cleveland scoring drive as a meaningless gesture. Inopportune as they may have been, the 49ers nonetheless were in charge of this one almost from the start to finish as they concluded their home stay and headed on 3-game road tour with a 2-1 record. Cleveland, on the other hand, was sent on its way to Los Angeles, still looking for their first win after 3 consecutive losses, and with the pronounced passing perplexity still of a major concern to Coach Paul Brown. Almost all the excitement of a hard-hitting afternoon was contained in an explosive first period when Mighty Tittle passed to 2 49er touchdowns, and the Browns countered with a 70-yard scoring burst by their 227-pound NFL rushing champion, Jimmy Brown. These touchdowns came with a suddenness that brought the crowd of 24,737 to expect a wild scoring display, but the two teams grooved to a considerably slower pace immediately following Brown's big gallop, and it wasn't until the fourth period and Davis' game-winning three-pointer that either side could reach pay dirt again. In between, the 49ers immeasurably improved over the lethargic display against Green Bay last week, were wasteful, or they might have wrapped up their 7th preseason victory in 8 tries. All right, so let's go one more page here. The San Francisco Examiner, the August 31st, 1959 edition of the San Francisco Examiner. Let's go. Let's see what the second page has to say here. All right. There we go. Whoops. That's why we refreshed the page. All right, here we go. This is the one, maybe Owens caught out of the end zone, I'm going to say. Officials ruled that 49ers RC Owens didn't gain full possession of the ball until he had gone beyond the end zone of the play and disallowed the apparent touchdown. But this magic eye sequence by Examiner photographer Charlie Doherty fails to show any juggling of the ball. Did he juggle it? You be the ball. You be the judge. So right here, whoops, he's 2 feet in bounds. 1, right? 1 down there and 2. Is he juggling it? Yeah. I guess maybe he's juggling it over here, but was he juggling it there? Well, they said he was. So, I don't know. There we go. All right. Let me see. Where are we here? Preseason victory in 8 tries against Cleveland with consummate ease. Ironically, the lone severe Cleveland miscue of the day turned out to be the big one as the game was played. That occurred early in the final period when Cleveland, 14-7 in arrears and seemingly on its way to a surefire equalizing touchdown, blew the Duke. The Browns were at the 49er-10 with first and goal to go when quarterback Mill Plum raced right with a pass in mind. He was clattered from behind by Henry Schmidt, the tough ex-Marine from USC, and lost the ball he was carrying like a loaf of bread. Carl Rupke, another former Trojan, boomed in for the recovery to end one of the only 3 serious threats Cleveland was able to muster all afternoon. The 49ers, sparked by a big 39-yard run by J.D. Smith behind masked interference, went from there to set up their lone successful field goal after an earlier attempt from the 20 had been blocked and another from the 47 had fallen well short of his mark. Another San Francisco touchdown recorded on the spectacular end zone catch by R.C. Owens was to be taken away early in the game when field judge Charles Sweeney ruled Mr. Alley-oop didn't have full control until after he had stepped beyond the restraining lines. The negative decision, booed roundly by the crowd, magic eye photos raised some doubt, wasn't fatal. However, the 49ers marched on to score anyway on a spectacular fingertip catch by the incomparable Billy Wilson. While it can be assumed that the Browns, perennial powers of the Eastern Division, will be tougher competition when the 49ers meet them during the regular season at Cleveland in late November, Coach Red Hickey couldn't help but be pleased with today's production. The defense, with Leo Nomalini, Rupke, and Matt Hazeltine leading the frontal assault, and with rookies Eddie Dove and Dave Baker proving valuable chattels in the secondary, did yeoman work, except for the time when Brown tore loose on his lengthy romp. The blocking by the offensive forwards and the protection provided Tittle also had to be given an improved grade. And the shifting of Hugh McElhaney to the wing began to bear fruit as the hurry man caught 7 passes for 103 yards and 1 touchdown. As impressive as anything else was the 49ers' willingness to stand in there and crack leather with the likes of Bob Gain and Willie McClung. All this showed in the statistics the 49ers outgained their ancient rivals 339 to 268, with Tittle's 19 pass completions for 180 yards making up what small advantage the Browns enjoyed on the ground as a result of their fullbacks bulldozing. The powerful ex-Syracuse University smasher alone accounted for both the Cleveland touchdowns and 116 yards of the net ground gain and 14 carries. The fact is, Cleveland made little headway until after Mill Plum had replaced Jim Nanowski at quarterback in the second half and just about settled that one-time Penn Stater will have to be the Browns' Tillerman. Nanowski was no match whatsoever for Whitey Tittle from the 49ers' opening offensive play. It started on Cleveland's 48 as a result of Plum's wind-shortened 28-yard punt, with Captain Whitey Tittle throwing one down the slat to McElhaney on the Browns' 34. Veering sharply to his left and away from linebacker Chuck Noll, McElhaney threaded his way down the sidelines, picked up a block from Clyde Connor, and darted into the end zone just ahead of a convergence of 3 Brown tacklers. Davis, rapidly establishing himself as a reputation as a valuable 49er foot, converted, but the 7-0 lead, which had been established in the playing time of 148, was short-lived. 2 plays after the 49er kickoff, Brown boomed the middle on a draw, sidestepped flailing 49er tacklers, and rolled past Bob Stitz, wild grab, and broke free. Those who hadn't seen Jimmy before were afforded a clear-cut demonstration of the talents that have established or had enabled him to head the NFL rushes both seasons he has been in the league. Non-aging Lou Groza added the 7th Cleveland point. The 49ers were quick to recover from Brown's haymaker. They retaliated by putting on the day's most concerted and lengthiest march, a series of 15 short jabs featuring the passing of Tittle and running of Jimmy Pace and Joe Perry, ultimately motored the 49ers to the Cleveland 5. On second down, Wilson, angling sharply across the field and into the end zone, reached up to make a dazzling catch of Tittle's overthrown pass for the go-ahead points. It was during this approach that Owens made his sensational semi-alley-oop grab on a 32-yard pass from Wyatt Tittle behind Junior Wren. It looked from the press box as if there was no doubt, but Owens himself admitted the ball had been jarred loose from his grasp when he landed and couldn't be sure he juggled the ball until 1 foot landed beyond the end zone as ruled by the arbiter. Okay, arbiter, whatever, by the referee. The second quarter went scoreless because the 49ers couldn't cash in on a promising situation when they drove to the Cleveland 13. There, on fourth down, Davis's field goal try from the 20 was blocked by Jimmy Schaffner. The first half wound up in the unusual style with Groza missing 2 midfield field goals attempts when the Browns elected to utilize their free kick option following a fair catch on a punt. Groza first tried from 59 yards away, a follow-up effort from the 5 yards closer after the San Francisco had been penalized for violating the neutral zone, likewise was muffed. The third period was similarly uneventful, although the Browns began to pick up steam with Plum at the controls and might have done damage had the Cleveland receivers applied themselves more diligently. A great Davis punt, which was down by Jim Ridlin on the Cleveland 1, was later offset by a 15-yard holding penalty assessed against the 49ers. That set the stage for Rupke's all-important recovery leading to Davis's field goal. Smith set the attack in motion with a 38-yard burst, which came close to going all the way. With a veritable cordon of blockers up ahead, Smith was on his way until Bernie Parrish managed to grab him by the shirt and haul him down on Cleveland's 48. The advance stymied at the San Francisco 15. Few persons in the arena were aware that Tittle had suffered a nasty crack on his head and was in dreamland for half a dozen plays until Hickey replaced him with Brody. Yeah, so he was out there with a concussion playing, right? That's not happening nowadays. After running one of the at the line, the 49ers called on Davis, and the LSU split the Louisiana Stater, LSU player, split the uprights to put victory out of Cleveland's grasp, although the Browns covered 73 yards in 9 plays during the little time remaining to rack up their second TD. Exhibition or not, it's always satisfying to beat the Browns, and the 49ers head for next Saturday's Seattle game with the Chicago Cardinals, somewhat reassured after last week's dismal showing against the Packers. It wasn't a costly win either. Connor was badly bruised when Junior Wren dragged his knees across Clyde's back in the second quarter, but Hickey thinks agile Clyde will be ready next Saturday. I mean, some of the well, I'll tell you, it's tough. It was tough back then, especially because you don't have as many players. So every player was really, really valuable, and you couldn't even imagine the pain that these guys had to play through. I mean, it's not the way it was now. Obviously nowadays you got more players. You're not allowed to practice as long. They practiced and they tackled and they hit and all that during practice years ago, and they don't really do that too much anymore. But exciting game. They would wind up playing each other once again during the regular season, as they do a lot. I mean, because back then when you play 12 games, you play 6 preseason games. Those 6 preseason, you're bound to play some teams twice. Unlike nowadays when you play 17 games and you play 3 preseason games, a lot of times those 3 preseason games, those teams you may not see them. Sometimes you do, but not always. You're certainly not playing a team in your own division. Like the Giants aren't playing the Cowboys, the Eagles aren't playing the Commanders, right? But it was like that back then because there was only so many teams to play. But for both these teams, this is just an exhibition. They will both have winning records, but for both of them, it'd be the way they fell apart. Both teams be very, very disappointing. With the Browns being 6-2 and tied at first place with 4 games left to go, they would lose 3 of their final 4. And I said for the 49ers, they were 6-1, 2 games in first, 2 games ahead of the Baltimore Colts with 5 games left to go. And they would totally collapse, lose 4 of their final 5, and they wouldn't even finish in second place. They would finish all the way in third place, tied with the Green Bay Packers, record of 7-5. So that's the way it was on this date, August 30th, 1959, as the Cleveland Browns would take on the San Francisco 49ers at Kezar Stadium in pro football. First 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.